Welcome to Mariana Express. We're at the Sinai Supreme Court courtroom, joined with Hawaii State Supreme Court Associate Justice Sabrina McKenna. Thank you and welcome to the program.
Mahalo, aloha, and have a day.
So you're here for a few oral arguments. Full disclosure, as with any justice or judge, we cannot discuss ongoing cases. So if you're expecting to hear that, this is not the platform for it. But perhaps we'll just start because this is, I understand, your second visit to the Northern Marianas. You're serving as Justice Pro Tem, as our Guam judges do as well. What are your impressions of the NMI so far?
Well, I love it here. You know, it does remind me of home in Hawaii, island community, affiliated with the United States, highly dependent on tourism. And in Hawaii, we have a very strong U.S. military presence also. I think we deal with a lot of similar issues in terms of tourism, the climate change, the impacts on our communities, and the cost of living and jobs for local folks, and how young people in our communities can make a living and live in their homes.
And you were appointed as a Supreme Court Justice for the state of Hawaii more than a decade ago at this point, right?
Yes, 2011.
Right, mm-hmm. And so what has your journey to the bench been like, and what drew you to this profession?
Good question. Well, you know, I grew up in Japan originally. My dad was formerly served, he served in World War II in Korea, and then he was an educator with the U.S. Civil Service, educating military soldiers, college programs. And then my mother was Japanese, so I grew up, and she became naturalized a U.S. citizen, but I grew up in Japan, and then I went to the University of Hawaii. My dad died when I was a kid, so I didn't really grow up knowing lawyers or anything like that. And I was at the University of Hawaii thinking, what am I going to do? My cousin's husband told me, you know, you should consider law school, because he had gone to law school. He was more into different things, but he had gone to law school. And I also played basketball at the University of Hawaii as one of the first early beneficiaries of Title IX. And a woman on on the volleyball team started law school, and I remember thinking, wow, athletes can go to law school. You know, she was a very intelligent, smart woman, but that's when I really started thinking about it. But actually, really, another thing that really triggered law for me was the fact that I was an early beneficiary of Title IX. You see, I walked on to the University of Hawaii Wahine basketball team the first year of intercollegiate athletic play in 1974, so you can tell how old I am. And I walked on, and then the coach, I made the team, and the coach gave me a scholarship. And I'm like, what? You know, I had paid non-resident tuition. Why am I getting a scholarship? And I found out it was because of Title IX. And then I started looking into what's Title IX, and I found out it was like really sponsored by this Japanese-American congresswoman from Hawaii, Patsy Takemoto Mink, and she's the one that really pushed it through because of all the discrimination that she had gone through in her life. And I realized the power of the law to effectuate positive social change. So then I really started thinking about law, and I decided to go to law school. After law school, you know, it's kind of interesting because when I started law school, I thought, I really want to help people. I want to go to work for legal aid. But I also thought at the time that I needed to help support my mother after my dad had died. And so legal aid paid so little. So I went to work for a civil law firm that it was one of the best paying places in Hawaii. And I had a great experience there, and I thought I would become a partner and just practice law. But then because of my Japanese background, one of my existing clients from Japan asked me to go in-house during the bubble economy of the late 80s. Traveled around the world with the owner making investments in real estate around the world. And I burned out from that, and I thought, what am I going to do? And then I remembered when I was a first-year law student, one of my adjunct professors had been appointed a judge, and I remembered thinking, wow, lawyers become judges. Maybe that's something I could aspire to someday. But I had not, like planned a career thinking I'm going to become a judge. But then I ended up applying. I decided to apply to be a judge. I decided I was going to give back to the community. I wanted to go into public service. I applied to the judiciary and to be a law professor. The first time I applied to be a judge, I did not make the list of finalists that you have to under the Hawaii State Constitution. But I got the law professor position. I taught at the law school for 2.5 years, and then there was another opening. The second time I applied, I made the list, and the Chief Justice at the time, Ronald Moon, selected me as our lower court judge. So that was, I started as a judge in late 1993, so I've been judging for over 30 years. So I started at our limited jurisdiction trial court. A year and a half later, Governor Cayetano, the first Filipino-American governor in the state, I think in the country, appointed me to our Court of General Jurisdiction. And then I applied many times for appellate courts, made a lot of lists for our intermediate court, Supreme Court. I was on the list for finalist for federal court, was never selected. And then in 2011, I applied again and we had a new governor, Governor Neil Abercrombie, and then I was appointed to the Supreme Court in 2011. So I've been with this court for 14 years now.
And speaking of school, you went back to school.
I did.
Recently, you got your LLM at Duke. You were the class speaker.
Yes.
Was that last year?
No, this was just 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
I was in North Carolina.
Right. I mean, why was that important for you to go back to school?
Well, this is a great program. Duke Law School has a Bulge Judicial Institute, and it's been for about, I was a member of the 6th graduating class. Every other year they take about 20 judges, federal, state, and 2 international judges to learn about the judiciary and to learn the study of the judiciary as well as issues and law affecting judiciary. So mainly taught by Duke law professors, but they sometimes bring in adjuncts from other parts of the country. And it was a wonderful opportunity to learn with and actually from other judges also, because we're small and we're talking and we can be open and frank about the issues that are affecting us and how we perceive things, people from different backgrounds. So I thought, you know what, I'm never too old to learn, continue to learn. I have to retire from my position. Our Constitution has a mandatory retirement age of 70. So I'm going to have to retire in about 2.5 years. But I figured it doesn't matter, even for those next 2.5 years, whatever I learn, I can help contribute back to not just the Hawaii judiciary, but also my work here as a pro tem. I think what's really important is that you're never too old to learn. And the law is, if you're in the law, you're a lifelong learner.
In researching your background for this interview, you're very open about your identity as part of the LGBTQ plus community. As you said, you're Japanese American, as an Asian American justice. I was looking at some of the articles, and I think one of them said there are just a dozen or so justices who are openly identifying as the LGBTQ community. Tell us about that part of your identity, and how does that inform your practice of the law, your interpretation of the law?
Of course, yes. I am very proud to be the first Asian Pacific American open member of the LGBTQ community to be serve as a justice on a state Supreme Court. I thought it was very important for me to come out openly, although, people that I worked with knew. What happened was when I was nominated and there was a press conference with the governor, my then partner and our 3 children were in the small room where the press conference was being held, and the media asked, who are you? And she said, oh, I'm her partner. And the media said, oh, you mean like law partner? She said, oh, no, personal partner. And then they decided they wanted to ask me and talk about that. And then I actually talked to my kids and I said, hey, we agreed that they wouldn't show my kids or name them just in case, but I decided it was important for it to be open. It was especially because my last position, before I was appointed to the Supreme Court, was the presiding judge of our family court on Oahu. And there I had not realized, even being a member of the community, that over a third of our homeless youth in Hawaii are LGBTQ, mainly the transgender folk. It's just a lot of youth get kicked out of their homes when they come out to their parents. And I also learned that LGBTQ youth were 4 times as likely to attempt suicide. But LGBTQ youth that come from families that reject them are 8 times as likely to attempt suicide as LGBTQ youth that come from families that accept them. I also learned there were some studies in the early 2000s that about 77% of Caucasian youth would come out to their parents. And the numbers for Black and Latino were 70 and 60. But only 51% of Asian and Pacific American youth would come out to their parents. And why is that? Because who knows better what their parents' attitude is toward the LGBTQ community other than the kids that are growing up in these homes? And so, candidly, that was my own personal experience when I came out. My mother initially did not take it very well. By the time she passed away, she had come to accept me and my partner, especially since she had her first grandchild. She was so happy. But I thought it was really important for me to be open, to provide hope and inspiration to LGBTQ youth or members of the community, but also so that their parents and their families could see that, hey, we are members of the community, we're here, we're doing our jobs, we're all over in the community. You may not know, when I would come across people that would say, I don't know anyone that's gay, and I'm saying, oh yes you do, you just don't know that they are, And so in any event, I just thought it was really, really important for me to be out. And when I came out like that publicly in the news in 2011, I was the 4th justice, LGBTQ justice on the state Supreme Court. Yeah.
I went back and I saw some of that coverage. It was brutal, to be honest, Justice McKenna. It was quite brutal, the coverage that you got. How has that evolved now, in the tail end of your term here in Hawaii? How have you seen that evolve? And I think it's more celebrated now.
Yes, well, I'm really fortunate to be from Hawaii also. As you may know, the Hawaii Supreme Court in 1993 was the first court in the world to rule that denial of same-sex marriage could be a constitutional violation, and that was based on the Hawaii State's Constitution Civil Rights Clause that prohibits discrimination in the exercise of civil rights based on sex. And so, candidly, that just really strengthened my resolve that I really wanted to be a member of the judiciary of a court that could make such a holding. It was just amazing, right? And I've been really fortunate to be a member of our judiciary, the Hawaii State Judiciary, because to me, it's just very professional, very I guess, people that respect people's rights and respect difference and respect diversity of all kinds, not just LGBTQ, but it could be religion or ethnicity or whatever it is, right? So I've been very, very fortunate, and I realize that I have lived as a member of the Supreme Court especially, you kind of live in a more of a protected environment, and I'm around people that are very enlightened in my view, and so I'm very fortunate. I know that not everyone is as fortunate, and that's why I do speak out about these issues, because I think it's really important for people to recognize that, whatever your personal feelings might be, it's actually very harmful for you to overtly discriminate against people. The suicide statistics I tell you, but that you're also, diversity to me is very important. All the studies show that diverse organizations, businesses, it helps productivity and it helps the bottom line, right? Because you're getting different points of view. And when people feel accepted, they're going to work harder and they're going to contribute more. It's really unfortunate I think, the world tends to go in cycles, my life experience. We're definitely on a down trough right now in terms of acceptance and attitudes toward the LGBTQ community, but I think I feel very fortunate that I live in Hawaii. And I think in general, I would assume that in the islands, people would be more, traditional cultures, I think indigenous cultures, if they go back to the indigenous cultures and what the traditional cultures, how they addressed these issues, I think there would be more acceptance.
I know you're also a law school professor, still teaching, right?
Yes.
And so what's your advice out there to maybe students considering the law, maybe they're hesitant? I know the NMI judiciary itself tries to engage the youth and those in college already to join the legal profession. And so, yeah, what's your advice to them?
I would strongly encourage anyone that's considering law school to do it. I think it's like one of the best decisions that I ever made to study the law and to be able to give back, to understand how things work and how you can get things done. I think it's just a great background. No matter what you go, you don't have to practice law. It would be great if I encourage people to practice law for a while, even if they go into different things, government, politics, business, nonprofits, whatever it is that you do. And I hope everyone is aware that the University of Hawaii William S. Richardson School of Law, where I teach state constitutional law with my colleague, Justice Todd Edens, we have a fully online JD program that NMI students, obviously going somewhere is very expensive, but we now have an online program that you could stay home and get a JD from the University of Hawaii William S. Richardson School of Law. So I think it's called the JD Online Flex program. I encourage NMI students to look into that and consider doing our online program if you don't want to leave, because otherwise you do have to come at least as far as Hawaii if you want to get a US JD, right?
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Justice McKenna, that's all the questions I had. Anything else you'd like to let our audience in the Marianas know?
Well, no. Thank you for welcoming me here, and it's just such a wonderful island, and I hope to be back again soon. Mahalo, aloha, half a day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. You can get the latest headlines at marianaspress.com.